At first glance, it's a typical school story. A new student tries to fit into a closed community of spoiled heirs to power and money, but behind the simple words that no one believes, there's something much more serious. The truth on which not only her reputation, but the safety of the entire country depends. Kori Robinson felt eyes on her as soon as she crossed the threshold of Syntclair Prep, an off-brand backpack, an old jacket. All of this immediately gave her away among the sparkling outfits of students from the families of senators, corporate owners, and influential people. Here, last names mattered more than grades, and outsiders like her were perceived as an alien element. She tried to stand up straight as her father taught her. Don't give them a reason to think you're weaker. But it was difficult, especially when you're the only one who doesn't wear Balenciaga sneakers. Hey, are you new? A tall, blonde, perfectly coiffed man called out to her. Cam Lawrence, the congressman's son, she later learned. Yeah, Kori answered shortly. Camden. Welcome to the rich man's paradise. Where are you from? Arlington. Oh, cool. My people keep a house there when they're not in Miami. My people? Kori nodded, suppressing her irritation. She took a seat by the window in social studies. The teacher, Mr. Rawls, said without looking, We have a new girl. Introduce yourself. Kori Robinson. We just moved in. What do your parents do? Mom's a nurse. Dad works at the Pentagon in cyber. There was a moment of silence in the room, and then a chuckle. Camden, I think. Someone muttered, Yeah, right. Mr. Rawls chuckled. The Pentagon, you say? Well, let's hope we all get that high someday. Kori's cheeks flushed. She knew her father had asked her not to talk about his job, but it was true. He wasn't a movie hero. He was a network security analyst, a real professional. She sat alone in the cafeteria. Girls passing by whispered to each other. Do you think she really comes from a military family? She must have been watching too many TV shows. That evening, Kori called her father. He was away on a business trip, as he often did. It's okay, Dad, she said. No one believes where you work. They'll laugh until they find out who you are. I promise. One day they'll listen. A few days later, the school announced Career Day. Parents were supposed to talk about their professions. Classmates competed to boast about their connections. Judges, rocket developers, financiers. When it was her turn, Kori said quietly, If he gets back from his business trip, my father might speak too. He works at the Pentagon. The teacher smiled reservedly and put a question mark next to her name. More laughter rang out. Someone had left a note on Kori's notebook. The FBI is on its way. Don't forget your bulletproof vest. It was getting harder every day. Camden teased her again at the lockers. You're a special agent, right? Or a retired general? Kori didn't answer. Her silence only fueled the rumors. Some claimed that her father was an ordinary driver, others that he was a fictional character. Even the Media Journalism Club turned her down. We need real stories, not fantasies. In history class, she was ridiculed again. Maybe Kori will explain everything to us. She is from the Pentagon. Even the teachers did not hide their irony. But the worst thing was not that at all. The worst thing is the feeling that even adults don't believe you. After one of her lessons, Kori stayed behind to clarify the assignment. Mr. Rawls, without looking up from his computer, suddenly asked, Kori, tell me honestly, is it true that your father works at the Pentagon? Yes, she answered calmly. You see, he said with a soft intonation, I don't judge. It's just that sometimes children tend to make things up, especially here in such a, let's say, high-level place. He emphasized the last word especially clearly, as if reminding her she wasn't quite one of them here. He really does work there. I can bring him to Career Day. Well, Rawls nodded reservedly. I'll write it down. It will be interesting to listen to. His voice, however, did not sound like that of a man who was expecting an important guest, but rather like that of someone who was counting on an exposure. That evening, Kori sat in her room, staring at the blank screen of her tablet. Her mother had gone to work the night shift. Her father was on a business trip to Maryland. He had called yesterday, promising to be back on time, but now Kori was beginning to doubt. What if he didn't make it? Or worse, they would say he never existed. She typed a short message. Are you sure you're coming? The answer came quickly. I promise, baby, I won't let you down. And yes, I'll take a badge, in case anyone needs proof. Kori smiled, but only briefly. The next morning, there was a printout on her desk. A photo of a man in overalls. The caption, "Here's your daddy, janitor at the Pentagon, also a job." She silently folded the paper and put it in her backpack. Someone was undoubtedly watching her reaction. But Kori didn't give the slightest reason to celebrate. In the cafeteria, a girl named Liv sat next to her for the first time. They barely spoke. Liv looked at her seriously. "You know everyone thinks you made it all up." "What about you?" Kori asked bluntly. "I don't know if it's true you're brave. If it's not, you shouldn't have said it. They don't forgive things like that here." "It's true," Kori said quietly. Liv nodded. "Then you better hope he comes." There was a week left until career day. On the door to her office was a list of participants. Someone had written a handwritten note next to Kori's name. Or is he on another secret mission? She rubbed the note off with her finger. The ink smudged, but the mark remained. A Washington postmarked envelope was waiting for her at home. Inside was an official invitation to career day and a printout of her badge. James Robinson, U.S. Department of Defense. Dad had kept his word. Kori hung the pass on the wall above the desk. As a reminder, everything was about to change. The morning didn't come in a rush and panic, as it usually does on important days. Everything had been planned out in her head for a long time. Kori woke up before the alarm, put on a skirt ironed by her mother, a white shirt and a cardigan. Her father promised to be there by 11. He was sixth on the list. Everything had to go perfectly. Even the school bus was on time. The assembly hall was full. The parents entered through a separate entrance, and they were met by seniors in formal suits. Each had a badge with his name and position. Kori peered into their faces, looking for her father, but he was gone. "Are you nervous?" she heard from the side. "Camden," she answered evenly. "Everything is fine. They say we have a special guest today, or is it a casting for Netflix?" "You'd be surprised," she said calmly. "I already am, especially if he shows up at all." He walked on, not even looking at her. The parents spoke one after another on stage. Sophia's father spoke about an oil company. Dylan's mother spoke about lobbying. Someone presented a quantum computing startup. A banner behind the stage read in gold letters, "The future begins with example." Each speaker was given 5 minutes. The applause grew louder. The next speaker finished, and there was a short pause in the hall. The host, a music teacher, smiled slightly nervously and announced, "And now Kori Robinson takes the floor. Her father is an employee of the Department of Defense." The stage suddenly seemed infinitely large to Kori. The hall was too quiet. Every step echoed in her head. She approached the microphone, feeling her knees treacherous. "Hello, my name is Kori, and I want to tell you a little about my father's work. He works at the Pentagon. He is a cybersecurity specialist. This means he protects important digital systems from attacks, hacks, and data leaks." First, a light laugh somewhere in the hall, then another. Someone whispered loudly enough, "The actor will come out now, a real spy." "Or he couldn't make it," Camden added loudly, not hiding his mockery. "It's probably classified." The audience giggled. Even some of the parents exchanged glances. Kori swallowed. "He'll come. He promised." "Yeah," one of the adults chuckled. "It's not your average job. The delay is probably a matter of national importance." "Let's let the girl finish," the teacher said wearily. Kori glanced toward the entrance. Empty. She fell silent. One of the parents in the front row leaned forward. "Next?" But she didn't move. Leaving the stage meant admitting they were right. Giving in. "He'll come," Kori repeated firmly. And at that moment, something changed in the audience. At first, it was unnoticeable. A man in a suit, a congressional staffer, judging by his badge, looked at his tablet. His face tightened. Then a woman from the software company frowned, checking her phone. Whispers spread through the rows. The devices froze. "Someone is breaking the mailing list." "What is this?" The hall began to buzz. The director's assistant came out on stage, urgently whispered something to the host. She nodded, stepped aside, and then the door swung open. A tall man in a dark blue jacket, no tie, with a neat folder in his hands, entered the hall. He walked confidently, calmly, as if everything that was happening was part of a plan. He walked up to the stage and looked straight at Kori. "Sorry for the delay," he said. His voice was familiar, strong, and suddenly everything around him became just background. I had to stop the attack. Literally. He put his hand on Kori's shoulder. James Robinson, United States Department of Defense. This morning we detected an attempt at targeted hacking of devices connected to the local area network of this building. It appears that someone wanted to access data on people in this room. He looked around the room. Some of you may have noticed strange activity on your phones. Please turn off your Wi-Fi and do not open any unknown notifications. My department is currently investigating this. The silence in the room was ringing. This time it was respectful. Kori stood next to her father, straight, calm. Pride ran through her body like a steel rod. Today they listened, and finally they believed. Pause, James Robinson continued. But don't worry, we've already intercepted the bulk of the attack. Our specialists are currently working on the source. The hall was deathly silent, and suddenly, a bang, then a second, applause, cautious but sincere. Kori was still standing next to him, as if afraid to move. Her father leaned over. I promised I'd come. She simply nodded. Now no one in the hall was laughing. After James's words, the assembly hall seemed to freeze. No whispers, no movements, only a muffled rustle. Tablets and smartphones were turning off, as if someone invisible had given the command. Silence. Even those who had been grinning half an hour ago were now looking at the stage with an attention bordering on disbelief, as if everything that was happening was something from another world. The school principal, Mr. Eldridge, approached the stage. Mr. Robinson, are you sure the threat was real? I'm sure, James nodded curtly. We tracked unauthorized access to the network. The attack was carried out through a fake login page for the school's Wi-Fi. It was disguised as an official system. He pulled out a tablet and opened the diagram. Routes, IP addresses, event logs. One of the parents gasped quietly when he saw his name among the targets. Most of you are government officials, large corporations, lobby groups. Whoever it was, they were preparing. This was reconnaissance, passwords, emails, contacts, everything. So career day was bait, the principal clarified. Or a perfect opportunity, James said. A lot of influential people in one place, a single network, weakened attention. We're under attack, one of the mothers whispered. Not anymore, he replied. The threat has been neutralized. But I ask that anyone who connected to the Wi-Fi today, please hand over their devices to our team at the exit. Everything will be kept strictly confidential. He spoke calmly, without pathos, but his voice sounded so confident that it gave Kori goosebumps. It was her father, and no one doubted it now. After the speech, Mr. Eldridge invited them into the office. 2 officers in civilian clothes were already waiting there. The conversation was clear and to the point. Kori sat a little to the side, watching her father. Focused, calm, confident. He was not trying to impress. He was just doing his job. We don't yet know who exactly was behind the attack, James said, but disguising it as a school system is a subtle move. They were counting on no one noticing. They went out into the yard half an hour later. The event was ended early. The parents were gathering at the exit. The officers were taking the devices. Camden came up to them. Kori was already bracing herself for another jab, but his face was different. Serious. Mr. Robinson, he began hesitantly. Yes, James answered calmly. I wanted to apologize. To you and to Kori. I was, well, stupid. It's just, no one believed it was true. Sometimes the hardest thing to believe is the truth that doesn't fit your expectations, James answered. Camden nodded, turned around and walked away. That was weird, Kori whispered. Get used to it, baby, her father said softly. When the truth rises up, a lot of people's eyes drop. That same day, the school held an emergency meeting. Principal Mr. Eldridge apologized to Kori formally, thanked James for his prompt response, and promised to review the cybersecurity policy. Kori sat in the front row. No one was looking at her sideways anymore. No one was whispering. No one was laughing. Liv, the same girl who had doubted me before, sat down next to her. You know, I've never known anyone whose parents worked at the Pentagon. Now I do, Kori said. She didn't know what else to say. She just smiled. After the meeting, she and her father walked out to the car. Okay, he said, fastening his seatbelt. Where should I take you, heroine? We can go home, but first to that cafe on the corner. I'd like some ice cream. Good choice. Ice cream is a strategy for psychological stabilization, he winked. I approve, she grinned. They drove past the school. Her school, now for real. After 2 days, the school became quieter. Not the sounds, but the atmosphere. It was no longer hostile, and the looks directed at Kori no longer carried mockery. Now there was interest in them, and respect. The first person to approach Kori in the library was Mr. Rawls. He looked as stern as ever, but his voice was different, with a human edge. Kori, he began, adjusting his glasses. I'm sorry. I think you know that I haven't been on my best behavior. She nodded, but didn't smile. She simply said calmly, Thank you for telling me. We're starting a new unit on digital security soon. I was wondering, maybe you could give a talk to the class, or maybe you could ask your dad to send some materials. Only if you want. It wasn't a condescending offer, which was nice. I'll think about it, she said. After class, Liv invited her to join them for lunch. 3 other girls were already at the table. One of them, Madison, asked with cautious curiosity, Did you really know there was going to be an attack? No, Kori shook her head. He's not saying anything like that. He just promised he'd come, and he kept his word. He's cool, Liv said. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Kori felt like she wasn't a guest anymore. She was a part of it. That evening, Mom brought home pizza. Dad had just gotten back from Washington. They ate dinner in the kitchen, like always. No waiters, no security, no unnecessary words. How was your day, he asked. Not as loud as last time, Kori chuckled. Back in our day, we'd talk about it for at least a week, Mom added. Do you think everyone will forget? Kori asked. Dad put his glass down on the table and said, Some will. Most won't. But it's not what they remember. It's who you are now. She nodded. He was right. The following week, Kori went to the board in computer science class. She talked about phishing, fake websites, strong passwords, and malicious scripts. They listened to her. Even Camden, who wasn't joking, was interested. He even asked a few smart questions. After class, he came up to her. You know, I'm still sure you made up the story about coffee with James Bond, but you're doing great. Thank you, Camden. You're almost never annoying when you're not joking. He laughed and walked away. At the end of the week, Kori passed a bulletin board. There was an updated schedule of clubs on it. Someone had written in marker, We need participants for a new cybersecurity club. Headliner, Kori Robinson. Who knows, we'll understand. Kori grinned, took out her phone to take a photo, and noticed Liv nearby. Are you going to participate? She asked. I haven't decided yet. I guess so. Dad will be happy. He's a hero, you know? He's just doing his job. Like Mom. Liv nodded. What about you? Kori thought for a moment, then said, I just kept talking. On Sunday, she and her father went back to the corner cafe. It still smelled of caramel. They sat by the window eating ice cream and watching the kids play outside. So, baby, ready for the next attack? He asked, smiling. Kori glanced at him, then at her chocolate chip cup. Always, she said.